This question here involves us looking at index laws and how we can work with them. Now you've got to remember a few of the key index laws. So for example, if you have something that's a to the n times a to the m, what you have to remember is how you work with it, in that you add the indices together. Whereas if you divide, what we're going to do is we're actually going to subtract the indices. You have to make sure you remember not just those two, all the other big index laws. So for example, a to the power of 0 is a 1, square root of a is a to the half, those sorts of things here. But for this question specifically, these two are the big two that come up. Now a question like this, where it's got a fraction and it's got bits with indices on the top, bits with indices on the bottom, and it asks you to simplify it, the way to approach it is top, bottom, between. Simplify the top if you can, simplify the bottom if you can, simplify between the two of them if you can, and then make sure you give your answer in the format at once. So in this case, it says positive power. So we have to make sure the positive index that's left at the end is there. So if it starts with a negative, so say we ended up with 5c to a negative 2, that was my answer, I'd have to make sure I rewrote that as 5 over c squared to make sure I had a positive power. So let's start. So top, nothing needs to happen to there. It's already in its simplest form. Excellent. Bottom, c cubed times c to the power of 4. Well, if we use rule 1 there, when we multiply the two of them together, they've got the same base. Great, we're on a good start. We add the powers, ends up giving me c to the 7. What I can then do is sort between them. Now, it's just a 5 on the top, so that 5 has nothing to do. Alright, we don't combine it with powers, we don't combine it with the letters, anything like that at all. It's just a constant on its own. If there was another constant on the bottom, we'd simplify between the two of them, but there's not in this case. Then we look at this and we say, right, I'm doing c to the negative 2 divided by c to the 7. So I'm going to use that one there. So c to the negative 2 divided by c to the 7, that's going to end up being c to the negative 2 take away 7. So in this case, I'm going to get c to the negative 9. Now that I've got that, I look at it and say, great, final answer, however, it's not got a positive power. I need to somehow write that with a positive power. This is where we can actually bring in a third rule of working with indices. If I had something to a negative power, a to the negative n, I could write it as 1 over a to the n. So what that means is I can take the c to the negative 9 and rewrite it as 1 over c to the 9. However, because there's a 5 in front, it would be 5 on the top. So I'd end up getting 5 over c to the 9. Be very careful at that last stage. The most common error that we see in that sort of question, particularly at that last point where it comes up to simplifying it, is people will take the coefficient down. So they'll end up with 1 over 5c to the 9. Remember, the power of the negative 9 doesn't affect the 5 in any way. So we don't have to move that around at all. It's just the c that negative 9 is having an effect on. That's the only part that we move. So we end up getting a solution that looks like that with a positive index. Now this question here, a nice 3 marker. Get your first mark for sorting the bottom. Second mark for then sorting between here and getting 5c to the negative 9. Final mark is for then writing it with a positive power. So 5 over c to the 9. Now remember your laws of indices. These 3 are particularly big ones. You have to remember all the other ones as well. So about square roots and things like that. But those 3 there, I would say, are the biggest 3 that are going to appear whenever we're doing anything involving simplifying with indices. So please make sure you go away, you learn all your index laws, you learn these ones in particular, and you know how to apply them and how to simplify a fraction like this involving indices and follow instructions like with a positive power. If you can do that, you'll nail a question like this. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy.